On to our next speaker, one individual whom I'm very excited about as well, just as I'm equally excited about everyone, but for Nkisu Yikoña, we go quite a long way. We've always had the same circle of friends and had our interactions here and there, but I'm really excited for him to come and share a lot of nuggets. He's probably one of the most talented, individuals I know, even from a distance. He's one of the most talented people I know. When I think of Jamie Foxx, and Jamie Foxx can do anything, I put Nkisu in the same line. Nkisu can do anything. And what I love about today is that you get to see a side of him where he's talking to us about entrepreneurship, about leadership, and about pursuing purpose. So Nkisu Yikoña is the founder of HK Creations, which is a marketing and creative agency that works with large corporations and brands, works along the lines of bringing digital transformation and creating new frontiers in the lines of marketing. Individually, I know he's emceed a lot of events. He's an influencer. And he's one person who I closely follow because this man has got a lot of influence. So please lend him your ears and your attention. I'm just give him a round, a loud round of applause as he comes to the front. And really excited to hear from you, Nkisu.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How's everyone doing? So my name is Nkisu Fulela Yikoña. I'm from Northwestern Province, Mwenyilonga District, but migrated to Lusaka a few years ago. And I'm proud to be here because I'm standing under the grace of my Reverend and Father, Reverend Bruce Musidi. A big hand to him, ladies and gentlemen. This is exciting for me because I'm a huge product of his ministry. I joined Mount Zion in 2007, and I was under his class called the $1 Million Talk. In fact, Reverend, I was having a chat with my wife that we need to bring back the $1 Million Talk. So he used to run a mentorship class at Zikas called the $1 Million Talk. It was leadership, entrepreneurial, and everything I've learned and applied has come from that class. I think Mangaliso was also part of the class, where on one session we watched The Secret. If you remember, he just came in with a very thin apple and told us that he would connect it and would watch The Secret. And I think that's where everything began for us business-wise. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the support. Thank you for the mentorship. We are happy to be here. I'm also here with my wife. I don't know where she is. She's in the corner there. Just stand so that that's my wife over there. She's a friend. She's a mentor. She's also a work colleague. We do business together. I'm also happy to see my friend Katoka Chambatu. Rev, this friend of mine here, we knew each other, I think, when we were 3 years old. We've grown together in Kitwe. We grew up together in Kitwe before he relocated to Mongu, and then now Chipata. Now, for me, this guy is the true definition of faith, because in 2014, he had the situation where he was at work in Mongu, and during his working hours, he developed a headache. Then he rushed home. And before he realized it, he was evacuated to Lusaka, and he was diagnosed with a very critical malaria. When he woke up 6-7 days later, he had lost his hearing. So he completely can't hear. But if you interact with him and the faith and the zeal that he has, it's just outstanding. He's taught me a lot. This is one guy, imagine, where everything is going well, And the following day, you just wake up and you can't hear anything. So he's taught himself to read lips. And he's still pushing. I don't know how many times he's received promotion at his work, regardless of his hearing. So for me, that teaches me a lot, my brother, and I'm happy to see you. It's a big deal that you are here. Thank you so much for coming. And obviously, the son of the house, Pastor Mangaliso Chihana, who most of you don't know that he's actually my best friend. He was best man at my wedding. I was best man and MC at his wedding. It's good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. So we can get straight to business. So my name is Nkisu, and I'll define myself quickly. Inani sanaka kutininka. Chilikush kwete. So all right. Okay, so I have a few topics that I want us to address, and for the sake of time, I'll run through quickly, but I know all of us will be able to learn one or two things. So by the end of my session, I want us to learn these 11 major points. The first one being the identity core, where I'll define and illustrate what it means to understand your identity. Then the theory of motive, which I know John also touched on when it comes to business, and also how to select your businesses, strengths and weaknesses in businesses, partnerships, compliance and documentation, how to launch your core values, acquiring clients versus retaining them, pricing versus service, and the art of learning. So these are the points that I'll look at this morning, even as we go through this presentation. And I want you to be very, very attentive. Those who are taking notes, please ensure you take notes where you can. So I'll quickly define myself. Like I've said, those are my full names. But I go by three major definitions. I'm a marketing expert. I did accounts and finance a few years ago. But I realized that my passion is more on the marketing end. So I'm a marketing expert. I enjoy creating marketing strategies for various entities. I'm also a business strategist and a business mentor. So basically, these are the three things that define me. And I also want to mention that each one of us needs to be clear about who we are. When someone asks about who you are, you need to clearly define yourself. Who are you? So for me, these are the three arms that define me. Apart from this, I'm involved in 4 entities, three of which I founded alongside my wife. So the first company that I founded was a company called Skylink Security Solutions. So Skylink basically provides security solutions, both guarding services as well as electronic security. So we install alarms, we install cameras, CCTV, biometric access control, motorized gates, electric fencing, and so on and so forth. So this company was founded in 2014. This is a year after I resigned from my former job. And then in 2017, I went on to register a company called HK Creations. And it's interesting because HK Creations was registered on the same day as Uchile Investments that Pastor Mangaliso owns. We went to Pakra together and we registered those two companies on the same day. So they share the same birthday. I think it should have been July 2017 if I'm not mistaken. So HK Creations is a marketing agency. So we are a creative and marketing agency. We basically provide marketing solutions for corporates and different entities. And then there is Second Door. Second Door was founded in 2019. This was after the Activate conference. I don't know if, Rev, you remember the story behind Second Door. So ideally for me, I needed a company that can go global, a company that won't just end as a local entity. So we're looking at ways in which, obviously this is after one of the speakers at the Activate conference spoke and said, you don't have to remain a local champion. You need to have a business that will attract the world. So Second Door is a company that provides CSR management solutions for various entities. You know how companies have got a corporate social responsibility budget. So we come in as Second Door to give you a CSR strategy on how that money will be used for sustainable development. So that's how Second Door was formed. And then last year, I joined a company called Buy Power Group. I'll explain more in detail on how I came into Buy Power Group. So Buy Power Group is a multinational development company. They focus on project financing, project sourcing, funding, construction, real estate, and so on and so forth. So I'll explain a bit more in detail about this. So these are the 4 entities that define me in terms of business. But like I said, I'm a married man. I've been married will be 6 years next month to the young lady seated at the back. So for the discussion today, my first point is on the identity core. So what I want to be clear about is that all of us in here are called to succeed. Turn to your neighbor and say, I'm called to succeed. So our calling is to success, meaning there is no one on earth who's here with a calling to failure. But the mistake we make, especially for us who are business people, we think the calling to success is only for the people in business. But I'm here to tell you that all of us are called to succeed. The only thing you need to understand is there are those that are called to succeed working for themselves, and there are those that are called to succeed working for others. All right? I have 2 friends of mine who are in the same church as I am, Mount Zion Christian Center. These guys are working for other people. But everything is success. The type of lifestyle they live, the type of families they have, the salaries they get. In fact, both of them are getting more than 250,000 kwacha net. So I can't go to those 2 people and tell them to resign their job because it's better in business. You get my point? They are very successful where they are. So you don't have to be insecure because you are working for another person. The only thing you need to be clear about is my calling to work for someone or to work for myself? All right? That's what you need to clearly define. And that's why I've given examples of these 2 people, because in their career, they've risen. One of them is even in the topmost position of an audit firm. So I can't go to him and tell him, say, you are doing a wrong thing. Even when you hear him speak, the guy is successful because he's super passionate about what he does. All right? So you need to define yourself in terms of where your success line falls. And there is, when you realize that your calling is more on the entrepreneurial end, you also need to be very clear about your motive. All right? And throughout my presentation, bear with me because I'm going to use my personal life to run you through the mistakes and the achievements I made for me to understand some of these points that I'll be guiding you. So these are not points that I've fetched from someone's lifestyle. These are my personal experiences. So in terms of motive, you need to have the right motive, especially if your calling to success is business. And I loved that John practically picked my notes and said, you can't have profit making as your motive to start a business. I'll tell you that if your motive is profit, you crumble even before you start. All right? So how do we define our motives, especially for business? I'll tell you that the only right motive for a good entrepreneur is solutions. That's the only right motive. That's why you see that, I'll tell you that Elon Musk never for one day set out his journey to be the most richest billionaire on the planet. He set out his journey to create a solution for green energy. To say, let me create a car that will be a solution. He recently launched another company called the Boring Company. This is a company that will have tunnels underneath so that cars or whatever people are transported easily. But I'll tell you that that business will still make him more money. If you look at Steve Jobs, all these guys created solutions as opposed to their motive being profit. If you look at Mark Zuckerberg, the guy said, it's difficult for us to interact in the school. Let me create a platform where it will be easy for us to interact. And what happened? He created Facebook. What happened to Facebook? Facebook became a very wealthy company. So your motive needs to be very, very clear. So I'll give you an example of a bad motive. I told you how how we launched Skylink Security Solutions in 2014. Now, I worked for a security company. So because of me working for a security company, I decided, in fact, when I was working for a security company, I was the finance manager. So I was the guy handling finance, and I was seeing how money was coming into the company. So when the security company liquidated in Zambia, I decided to launch a security company. But my motivation was what? Me seeing how much money was coming in. What I did not understand was that security requires a huge capital investment. In fact, we started off with security. By 2015, 2016 mid, we had deployed more than 350 guards. All right? Now, 350 guards for us was good because at that point you find that maybe you are making between 300 kwacha to 600 kwacha per guard as your net profit. But we only had one car, a Ranex, and I was a single young man, very disorganized. By the end, in fact, this is how depressing it was. You know when the Bible says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. I got married in the same year by September. By November, instead of finding favor, one of our sites was hit, and they stored diesel worth more than 600,000 kwacha. All right? So at that point, it's basically because we had a poor management system, and we couldn't manage a contract to that magnitude. So we had to start paying for that debt. All right? And in fact, this is what caused us to now downsize the company and then launch another company called HK Creation. So I'm giving you this example as a reason for a bad motive when it comes to business. Are we following? So that's Skylink Security at this point. I think this is now after we had rebranded and recapitalized. But the point there is, if I look at a company and it's still running, I won't call it a good move just because it's running, because the motive altogether was the wrong motive. But I want to give you an example of a good motive when it comes to business. So, like my brother Changu said, I've been an MC. I think as of last year, we celebrated more than 650 events that I've been MC at. Now, each time I would go to an event, I would be frustrated with the sound. Okay? So my wife and I sat and said, let's put together a company that will provide good sound to events. And I'll be honest with you that the reasoning there wasn't that let's create a company that will make us money. It was basically because when I'm going to MC an event, I would find bad sound. So we created HK Creations. And within the first year of business, our motive was purely providing good sound. But by 3-4 months after our launch, we started receiving calls from corporates because some of them would interact with us and see how the quality of our work would be. And they started giving us a lot of business. All right? Now, the business grew so quickly that within the first year, HK Creations was managing events for more than 50 high-level corporates. I think that's at one point, that's where I met Changu, because Changu hired us when he was still with FNB, and we provided a service to their entity. And I think they were very happy. But the passion was that we need to create a solution. So in whatever you want to engage in as a business, I'll tell you that if it's profit-driven, it will crumble. But somehow even God works in such a way that if your motive is solutions, somehow it works out very, very easily. So HK continued to grow. And this is, by the way, this was all before it was changed into a marketing agency. We had employed more than 14 people. Imagine an events company having a wage bill of more than 80,000 kwacha, having an office. For us, it didn't make sense. But we went on, and our passion was simply providing a solution. So in whatever you do, in your business, in your engagements, try to push business to a point where your motive is to provide a solution. So we continued to grow. The team was quite about the number of times to Arekwatama overnights. How many don't understand Bemba here? Oh, my sister here. It's good to see her, by the way. Thank you so much. So, and the thing about our brand was that everyone wanted to be associated with it, to the point where, Rev, some people would even want to wear the HK Creation t-shirt at church, you know, which would make me very uncomfortable. So the idea for us was that we provide the solution, and the company continued to grow. The next point for me is on business selection. And this is similar to what I've said. Like I've said, when it comes to business, number one, understand where you fall. Are you an entrepreneur? Number two, have the right motive. The third thing is understand your selection metrics. A lot of people think that just because you know how to take pictures, then you should start a business of photography. Or if I know how to do hair, then I should start a salon. Or if I know how to sewing a shirt, then I should start such a business. The way business works is you need to understand what strengths come when it comes to choosing a business. For example, if I know how to take pictures, and that's all that's motivating me to start a business, how will the business come in? Will I know how to walk into an office and negotiate for a deal? So some of the things we use, especially our execution strength, if I'm a very good executor, that's probably just a small percentage in your business cycle. Because apart from knowing how to take a picture, you also need to know how to negotiate for a deal. You also need to know how to walk into an office and convince someone to buy into your product. You also have to know how to manage your finances. So you'll be a very good photographer, but you will not grow your business because you always deplete your capital. So there is a lot that needs to go into understanding how to choose a business. All right? And like I'm saying, sometimes it's simple things like understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. For me, I'm very clear when it comes to my strengths. I know exactly what my strengths are. For us as Christians, we think it's a challenge if you list down your weaknesses. We think we are not being Christians. But this will help you understand your business. And I'll give myself as an example. When it comes to strengths, I know that I'm a very good negotiator. Okay? I know that I'm a comedian. So sometimes I'll walk into a room and someone will actually like me, not because of what I'm providing, but because they saw my TikTok video and it made them laugh. So I'll capitalize on that. I know that I'm a very good salesperson and I'm very convincing. You know, to prove to you that I'm super convincing, I just need to show you my wife. How does she end up with a person like me? Body and what degree holder, shani, phone certificate. twabasenda. You know what I mean? She just found out. And you know what's funny is my wife doesn't even know how we got together. So this is what happened. I started approaching her, and then she became a friend. Then I started introducing her to my friends as my girl. And she would get upset. Excuse me, why did you introduce me as your girl? I'm sorry. Following day again, then I noticed she stopped complaining. And that's how she became my girlfriend. So there was never a day I went to her and said, "Oh, can you now be?" So for me, this is my personal God-given strength. But guess what? This is what I use in business. The challenge with us is we think entrepreneurship is technical. There are things that God has already placed in you, and those are the things you use. You know, I'm one person who's very, very motivating. One strength that I have is that when it comes to putting together a team, I choose, I'll first of all motivate them to thinking if they are not part of my vision, then they'll miss out. Obviously, I have to now back it up with a good condition. So you need to use your God-given strengths to apply in business and to make it excel. But you also need to be clear about your weaknesses. For example, I'm one person who procrastinates a lot. Even a simple thing like preparing this presentation. Believe it or not, we were preparing it whilst driving to Chipata with my wife. She kept reminding me, "Can you do this?" "Hey, I know what I'll do. I've got the points. Can you at least look organized?" Twice up packing, I'm going to pack a date to finalize. So because of this, I always have to have a person in the team who's convincing me to do it there and then. All right? This is something that I struggle with. If I have an assignment, I'll push it to tomorrow, and before I know it, it's an hour before the assignment. Then I'm a very bad supervisor. My wife always tells me that sometimes, so in as much as I'm very motivating, I can be a bad supervisor because I bulldoze. You know, I want to make people feel like it has to be done, even if myself, I can't do it. Okay, the other problem I have is I get bored easily. It also explains why I'm involved in more than one company. Because you find that I'll start running HK. Within a year or two, I convince my wife, let's create a team to run it because I want to start something else. So I have to manage that. And I'm also not a good executor. So I'll walk into a company and I'll convince them that we'll do something in a certain way. But the moment I leave that office, I'll have to find someone to do what I promised the client. All right? So meaning because I've understood that, I have to have someone besides me who's good at executing. Then I'm a poor finance manager. I think my wife knows this very well. In terms of finance management skills, I'm not so good at it. So I always have to find a way to manage finances, maybe using somebody else. And then the other challenge I have is in the company, I think my opinion is always right. So when we're in a meeting and the ideas being shared, I'll feel like mine is the best idea. So I've understood these weaknesses so well that when it comes to executing or when it comes to driving an entity, I know exactly how to manage them. So I'm going to urge all of you, after this, find time, write down what your weaknesses are and write down what your strengths are. So let me also talk about something that's dear to me, and that's partnerships. A lot of us, especially in Africa, struggle when it comes to partnerships. For me, I've had crazy experiences. I think Reverend knows quite a lot when it comes to some of the partnerships that I've involved myself in, because it's him that I went to cry to. You know, I'll come back to HK Creations. I was showing you its glamour, its beauty, how it grew. But something happened to us that changed my life. In 2019, the company was growing very well, but for some reason, I decided I needed to bring in a partner. You know, that's why people said, do not fix something that's not broken. The company was running smoothly. Then for some reason, I decided to bring in a partner. And what's funny is, I just heard this person standing on a pulpit talking about how much money he had. And using my skill to convince, I walked into his office at 10 hours. No, this was actually 2018. I walked into his office at 10 hours. We had the meeting for 40 minutes. And by 14 hours, he transferred more than 500,000 kwacha into my account as an investment. All right? And you know where impia shaloa, and you are like, okay, now, mind you, the company is doing okay. There is nothing wrong. Long story short, a year later, we had a very small difference. And the guy decided to pull out of the company, sued me. I lost the case. And I needed to pay him I won't even mention the amount, very serious amounts as a compensation for whatever loss he had. The long story short, everything you saw, let me even go back so that you remember very well. Everything, all these cars, I'm a bailiffs, buddy, and attend to your neighbor and say bailiffs. In fact, what's funny is, Rev, the only equipment that survived was, remember we had, what did we have at church? Sock. The only equipment that survived was the equipment at church. They took the cars, they took the equipment, they took everything. You know where we woke up one morning and we saw a lot of people in suits outside sharing, oh, in a motoka, nala Sunday, in an ala Sunday, like they took everything. The long story short is that we went down very badly. Okay? So from 2019, the company was, you know, it would even hurt me where this was a company where everyone was seeing it. Everyone was seeing HK, and suddenly there is no HK. To the point where you are walking in the streets and someone asks, for HK, Mwadileka company. That's how bad it was. But this was all because of a very simple thing, partnerships. All right? So for us who want to get into partner, we need to first of all understand, why am I getting into a partnership? All right? And the other thing that we neglect, especially when it comes to partnerships, is documentation. Because when I went to see, there is nothing wrong that man did. The only mistake we made was, for me, I looked at him as my brother. He looked at him as his young brother. No need to sign anything. You know what I mean? So we didn't expect that one day we would have a challenge. But if documentation was in place, I feel that things were going to be done differently. So when you are looking at partnerships, and I always say that partnerships, the mistake we make is, just because Pastor Mangaliso is a friend, I want to partner with him in a business. But then I don't know what qualities he has. He doesn't know what qualities I have on the business side. So we need to be very clear when it comes to partnerships. And in the same angle of documentation, I feel that when we look at entrepreneurship, it also shows how serious you are when you put together proper documentation. Simple things. If I come to you and I say, I'm offering this tender, can you tender for it? I find that you don't have a company profile, you don't have business cards, you haven't put together. Always ensure that your company has everything put together. For us, we've emphasized that the moment we decide to launch our company, the website has to be in place. A company profile has to be in place. The right documentation, ZDARA, PACRA, whatever, all those things. These things seem very simple, but they'll define how serious you are if you are an entrepreneur. Okay? So after this, how do you then launch? How do you just start pushing? I always say that when it comes to business and you are starting off, we had a conversation in the morning with Matthews, and he was being asked why he's called manager operations as opposed to CEO or chairman or whatever. And the response was simple, that for him, it's not really about the position. It's about the output. It's about how much you churn out when it comes to work. So the challenge we have is you call yourself a CEO and you quickly relax and work like a boss because you are the CEO. But when you decide to launch out an entity, you need to work each day like it's your last. You need to put in your hours. You need to push. You know, for us, especially my wife, she's reached a point where I don't think in the mumona pona alala. You know, I'll go to sleep, she'll remain awake. By the time I'm waking up, she's working. And I'm asking myself, because for her, she believes that me owning a company there'll be a day when it will pay off. But when you are starting out, you need to really invest time in pushing. All right? And then in terms of core values, a lot of us, when we are creating entities, we like doing things in terms of just pushing effort. But I always emphasize, even to our team, we say, look, for us, all we want are results and solutions. So don't explain to me how much work you put in, but just show me that these are the results and these are the solutions I created. All right? And then in terms of price versus service, I always say that there is a point you reach as an entity where it's possible to provide such a quality service to your clients that your price doesn't matter. And that's the point you want to reach, the point of being oversubscribed, where when a client looks at your service, they don't really care how much they'll pay for it. And that's the point we should strive. So I talked about Buy Power, the entity. I wanted to end with this, with regards my presentation. And this is about the art of learning. You know, the reason my wife and I say, Pariba Reverend Ted to Ponte, it's because this is the man that has seen us through every thick and thin. He understands from the time we were a student to the time we grew, to the time we dropped, trying to grow back. So I always say that we need to invest time in learning. Now, last year we did something that was crazy. In 2021 Feb, this is after our crash. Remember when 2019, 2020, our company was really affected? We decided to say, look, I told my wife, you remain running HK Creations. I want to go and learn. I want to go and understand how business is done at a certain level. So we approached one of the businessmen at church, again, who's been there. This is a man who's gone through all the seasons, all right? He's for those who know Lusaka, obviously there is Levy Junction Shopping Mall. This is the man who actually built Levy Junction Shopping Mall. He's done so many big projects in Zambia. And we wanted to learn from such an individual to say, how do you benefit? Now, when it comes to learning, we have so many young people like me who want to learn by charging the one who's teaching you. So you are the one who wants the knowledge, but you approach the person teaching you like they are the ones benefiting. But I went to this man. Remember, I'm running 2 and 3 entities at that point. And I call myself a CEO. And I approached this man. I said, I want to learn from you. And how I want to learn is, I want to learn your negotiation skills, how you network, how you've built businesses, how they fail, then you rebuild them. But I want to learn this by becoming your PA, your personal assistant, for free. The only thing I want from you is knowledge. And the man was very surprised to say, how do you offer yourself like that? I said, simple, I just want to be here and learn from you. The long story is, the man took me in, and within a month or 2 of being exposed to him, he thought I was very beneficial to his entity and decided to make me a partner. And it's funny that on one incident, we went to another country to make a presentation to a president of that country. And in that meeting, he said, look, Mr. President, on this one, I'll invite this young man to come and present. Now remember, the idea was to go and learn. The idea was to just go to this man and learn from him. But the exposure became great. So even as entrepreneurs, you need to have the mindset to learn at every single stage. You should never reach a stage where you feel now I've overgrown to the point that I know it all. I think for us, that what has helped us is that at every stage we introspect. We introspect and we say, where did we go wrong? And who can we go to learn from? So thank you so much. My name has been Nkisu Yikoña. May God richly bless you and hope you enjoy the next session.